Transport Bill 2012. The Deputy has 4 minutes to make an initial statement.
Thank you, Chair. And I might just at the outset congratulate the Minister for the Dáil Dojo that he hosted yesterday in the AV room. It was a fantastic event. I know Bill and James myself as well, and the work that they're doing with this, with teaching computer coding skills to children, is fantastic fun. So congratulations again. It's the second dojo that we've had here in the Dáil, thanks to the Minister's initiative. The issue that I'm raising here today under topical issues is an issue that I first brought to Dublin City Council's attention when I was elected there in 2009. When I was first elected here to the Dáil, it was the content of the first piece of legislation that I published, the Smarter Transport Bill 2011. It's a simple technical bill, but if it was enacted, it would pave the way for 2 great ideas in Dublin City's transport infrastructure. The first concerns electric cars and electric car charging points. At the moment, we're rolling out electric charging points around the city, but as it currently stands, an electric vehicle cannot park there solely. Other cars can park in their charging points. Now, that makes no sense at all, because it's actually blocking the infrastructure for those who want to use it. Now, if we want people to use this infrastructure, if we want them to start driving electric cars, we want to incentivize them with parking spaces with electric charging points, then we need to get these strands together. That's common sense, and if we don't have common sense in our infrastructure, people won't use it. The second aspect of the bill is in relation to car-sharing car clubs. Essentially, this can be understood as Dublin bikes, but with cars. What one would do is one would book a car online, go around to their nearest car, use a swipe card that they have personally to get into the car, and then drive off in the car for the designated amount of time they wanted to use it for. You pay a standard charge in the year, say €50. You pay an additional charge, €3 to €5 per hour that you use the car, and it takes away all the hassle of actually owning a car. The cost of maintenance, the cost of NCT, the cost of insurance, and all these additional things that make it so expensive. It's a fantastic idea for people living in high-density areas such as Dublin City. It's also a great idea for families that may need a second car only on occasion but cannot afford to have one. Bringing in Dublin cars, if you like, would mean we would have less cars and less congestion on our streets, more parking bays, cheaper transport for people who need to use it, and it would also be better for the environment. Now, to get this working, what we need to be able to do is to provide Dublin cars in clusters of parking spaces on public streets, like we see with the Dublin bikes. And to do that, we need to change the laws. Now, when I first raised the idea in 2009, Dublin City Council, I was informed that primary legislation was needed. And then in 2011, when I was drafting this legislation myself to bring it in, once elected here, I was still told that primary legislation was needed. And this legislation was in fact meant to be transposed into the Minister's Road and Traffic Bill for 2013. But in that process, I was then informed that in fact primary legislation was not needed and that we could move forward with regulations only. So my question to the Minister is, and I appreciate that he's not able to be here today, but what I'm asking Minister Cannon on his behalf is, what brought about this sudden change in legal thinking? Why were we waiting 4 years for people to suddenly realise that we could actually go ahead with regulation and we didn't need the timely process of legislation? And my second question off the back of that is, well, how soon can we have these regulations? Because this is an important transport innovation for Dublin City. We've been waiting for it for long enough. The Department of Transport has their proper title and function. One would think that they would be more concerned with getting this through, seeing as it is such a simple matter. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd just like to thank Deputy Murphy for attending the Dáil Dojo yesterday. He's been a very, very strong and articulate advocate of the Coder Dojo movement, which we both agree is one of the most exciting movements to emerge from within the community sector in many, many years in this country. I'm taking this particular topical issue on behalf of my colleague, Minister Varadkar, who's unable to attend the Chamber today, and he would like to thank the Deputy for raising the issue. Deputy Murphy's Smarter Travel Bill 2012, which he introduced as a private member's bill, proposed to provide in law for the reservation of parking spaces for recharging electric vehicles and also for the reservation of spaces on street for car clubs. Minister Varadkar discussed this bill with Deputy Murphy at the time and indicated that he supported the proposals. He therefore asked his officials to ensure that the measures proposed were included in the new road traffic bill, which was then being prepared in his department. And during preparation of the Road Traffic No. 2 bill, which Minister Varadkar published last week, legal advice was received that Minister Varadkar, as Minister, already had the power to provide in secondary legislation for the matters covered by the Smarter Travel Bill. Minister Varadkar is happy to re-emphasise that he strongly supports measures to promote sustainable travel, and that in this context he is keen to facilitate both growth in the use of electric cars and the development of car clubs. Both electric vehicles and car clubs represent important environmental and sustainable travel initiatives. Both will help to reduce emissions and they all constitute creative solutions to the ongoing problems of environmental pollution in our cities. So work is therefore now underway in Minister Varadkar's department on preparing the necessary regulations, and he intends to bring in these regulations as soon as possible. The Government has set a target of ensuring that 10% of the nation's passenger car and light commercial vehicle fleet will be electrically powered by the year 2020. Action 47 of Maximising Ireland's Energy Efficiency, the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, provides for this. The aim is to reduce average vehicle energy consumption and hence CO2 emissions, air pollutants and noise. Minister Varadkar's department has also made a commitment under the Sustainable Travel and Transport Action Plan to support private and public sector initiatives to operate car clubs. And these are organisations which own a pool of cars, and members can book their use for a specified period. The intention to legislate to enable on-road parking spaces to be designated for car clubs through appropriate signage was made clear in Action 19, supported by Action 37 of that plan. The regulations now in preparation will address these matters by providing for designation of spaces for electric vehicle recharging and for car clubs, and for specific signage for these spaces. While the road traffic legislation falls within Minister Varadkar's area of responsibility, there will also be a need to look at other issues in order to ensure that recharging points for electric vehicles and spaces for car clubs can be provided on a sound legal basis. It will be necessary, for example, for local authorities to ensure that they have the appropriate powers to enter into arrangements with electricity providers and car clubs. Local authorities will also need to consider the revenue implications of changing the use of these spaces and to agree on costs with electricity providers and car clubs. These are matters which are under the remit of Minister Varadkar's colleague, the Minister for the Environment, Community and Local Government. Minister Varadkar wishes to thank the Deputy once again for raising the matter, and he wants to assure him that the required regulations will be in place as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Minister. And I'm aware of Minister Varadkar's support because we've spoken about this on a number of occasions. And in fact, in anticipation of legislation, either primary or secondary, coming through this year, last year in November, I called on Dublin City Council to go ahead and initiate the public consultation for the new bylaws that would be needed. And they did so in November. So Dublin City Council is already working to make sure that it's ready to go when the secondary legislation has been published. I do hope that the Department of Transport is talking to the Department of Environment on those important issues that you point out, and they're both talking to Dublin City Council. And it doesn't take us to raise it here in the Dáil on topical issues to spur on greater efforts. It's a very simple thing, but it's one that could deliver quite a big win for the people of Dublin. So I look forward to the secondary legislation coming in as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yes, I would agree wholeheartedly with the Deputy. I want to congratulate him on his initiative in promoting these new travel and transport opportunities for those living within the Greater Dublin area. They're very innovative and certainly will provide for new and interesting opportunities for transport within the city. The commitment given by Minister Varadkar, judging from the response that I just read to you, is a serious one. It's one he intends to follow through on, and I would expect that there is ongoing and significant consultation between the Minister for the Environment and Dublin City Council, and that those consultations will result in as quickly as possible in securing the change that the Deputy so strongly supports.